2025 has been a brutal year for anyone who still believes supermarket shelves will always be full. Supply chain shocks, extreme weather, and rising prices have exposed just how fragile our food system really is. One bad storm, one power outage, one political crisis, and the store you rely on every week can go dark overnight. In this video, I'll reveal 19 foods you can stockpile that essentially never expire when stored correctly. We'll cover everyday pantry staples, hidden survival superfoods, and a few dual-use items that can cook, clean, disinfect, or even help with basic first aid. Near the end, I'll show you the one resource at the top of the list that isn't even technically a food, but you won't survive 3 days without it. And most people are storing it dangerously wrong. Let's dive in. Number 19 is bouillon, those tiny stock cubes or powders that quietly turn survival food into real meals. On the surface, it's just dehydrated stock, salt, and seasonings. But in a crisis, one small cube can transform plain rice, beans, pasta, or canned vegetables into something warm, salty, and comforting. Bouillon earns its place on a long-term list because it's dry, salty, and concentrated. Low moisture and high salt make it very hard for bacteria to grow. As long as it stays sealed, cool, and dry, it can sit on your shelf for years and still work. The flavor might fade a bit, but it doesn't suddenly become unsafe just because the printed date has passed. In a stockpile, this bouillon is more than extra taste. A hot mug of broth can calm nerves, hydrate you, and help a sick or stressed person get a few more calories down. It also stretches ingredients. One cube in a pot of lentils, beans, or mixed leftovers turns random foods into a real soup. Keep your cubes or powder in airtight containers, away from heat and humidity, and they'll quietly pull more than their weight in any long-term pantry. Number 18. Dried spices and whole herbs. Most dried spices don't truly go bad. They slowly lose flavor, but they stay safe to eat for years, even decades, if you store them properly. Whole spices last the longest. Think black peppercorns, cinnamon sticks, whole cloves, bay leaves. Because they're not ground, there's less surface area exposed to air, so the oils that carry the flavor break down much more slowly. Ground spices like paprika, garlic powder, and onion powder won't last quite as long in terms of flavor, but they're still worth storing. Even if they're a bit weaker after many years, they can still transform bland rice, beans, pasta, and canned meat into actual meals instead of punishment. The storage rules are simple. Keep spices in airtight containers, away from light, heat, and moisture. A dark cupboard is better than a bright, hot kitchen shelf. In a real crisis, these jars aren't just seasoning. They protect morale. When every day feels stressful, a familiar smell in the pot can make your food and your mindset feel normal again. Number 17 is freeze-dried fruits. These are your long-term insurance policy for vitamins, especially vitamin C. Fresh fruit rots fast. Canned fruit is heavy, but freeze-dried fruit gives you almost all the benefits in a light, crunchy form that can sit on a shelf for decades when stored correctly. The water has been pulled out in a controlled process, so bacteria, mold, and enzymes have nothing to work with. That's why properly packed freeze-dried strawberries, apples, bananas, or berries can last 25 to 30 years in storage. They're also incredibly flexible. You can eat them straight from the bag as a crunchy snack, sprinkle them over oats or yogurt, or soak them in water to bring them back to life for baking and cooking. In a crisis, that hit of natural sweetness and real fruit flavor does more than just feed your body. It helps your mood and makes your meals feel normal again. To keep them shelf-stable, store freeze-dried fruit in airtight packaging, away from light, heat, and humidity. Once you open a bag, either eat it within a short time or reseal it tightly with as little air as possible. Treated that way, freeze-dried fruit becomes your long-range backup plan for real nutrition when fresh produce disappears. Number 16 is sprouting seeds like alfalfa, mung bean, and broccoli. These don't just sit on a shelf. They turn into fresh food even when the world outside has stopped. Here's why they matter. Most long-term foods are dry, heavy, and a bit boring. Sprouting seeds are different. With just a jar, some water, and a few days, you can grow crisp, living greens right on your counter. No soil, no sunlight, no garden, just rinse, drain, and let them sprout. Sprouts are packed with vitamins A, C, and K, plus enzymes and minerals your body craves in a stressful situation. When you're living on rice, beans, and canned meat, a handful of fresh, crunchy sprouts can literally wake your system up and support your immune health. Storage is simple. Keep the seeds dry, sealed, and away from heat and light. Properly stored, they can last for years and still sprout when you soak them. If moisture gets in, they can mold, so airtight containers or mylar bags are best. In an emergency, sprouting seeds are like a tiny indoor garden in a jar. They give you fresh food, real crunch, and a reminder that things are still growing, even when everything else feels stuck. Number 15 is distilled white vinegar. It looks like a simple, sharp liquid, but in an emergency, it becomes one of the hardest working bottles in your pantry. Distilled white vinegar is food safety, cleaning power, and disinfection rolled into one cheap, long-lasting staple. It keeps because it's simple and strong. No sugar, no fruit, no pulp, and no extra food for bacteria to feed on. The high acetic acid and low pH create a hostile environment for microorganisms. Flavored or sweet vinegars can eventually spoil, but true distilled white vinegar sits on the shelf, still usable. When things get tough, it earns its place fast. You can pickle vegetables to stretch their life, rinse fruits and greens, and mix it with water to wipe down cutting boards, counters, jars, and tools. It gives you a non-toxic cleaner when store products run out, and it helps cut bad smells in crowded rooms. The key is choosing pure distilled white vinegar, not bottles mixed with sugar, fruit juice, or artificial flavors. Store it sealed in a cool, dark cupboard away from heat. If the cap is left off, the acid evaporates. It won't rot, but it loses strength for pickling and disinfecting. Number 14 is baking soda. Baking soda looks simple in the box, but it's one of the most powerful forever items you can store. It's sodium bicarbonate, an inorganic mineral compound with no protein, no fat, and no moisture. There's nothing in it for bacteria, mold, or bugs to feed on. As long as it stays dry, it doesn't rot, go rancid, or quietly decay. It just waits until you need it. Where it earns its spot is versatility. In the kitchen, it works as a leavening agent for bread, biscuits, and emergency pancakes when you're out of yeast. Mixed with water, it can act as a basic antacid for mild heartburn. Turn it into a gentle paste and you can scrub pots, pans, sinks, cutting boards, and stained mugs. Sprinkle it as a deodorizer in shoes, trash cans, makeshift toilets, and cramped rooms. That odor-absorbing power is why storage matters. If you leave it open near onions, garlic, soap, or detergent, it will soak up those smells and ruin it for cooking. The smart move is to split your stash. One sealed container for food, another for cleaning. Kept dry, sealed, and away from strong odors, it becomes a cheap, stable, multi-tool for any crisis. Quick check-in. Are you enjoying this breakdown so far? If you want to learn more about smart foods to stockpile that never expire, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more food and preparedness content, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos in this series. Number 13 is white flour. This is one of those boring-looking pantry items that quietly does a lot of heavy lifting in an emergency. The trick is understanding why white flour belongs in a long-term stockpile and whole wheat flour doesn't. Whole wheat still has the oily bran and germ attached. Those healthy oils are great for nutrition and terrible for shelf life. They oxidize, go rancid, and your flour starts to smell sharp and off in a year or two. White flour has most of those oils removed. Less oil means far less chance of it turning bad. Stored correctly, white flour can last many years, even over a decade in good conditions. That's your backup supply for bread, biscuits, tortillas, pancakes, thickening soups, and stretching almost any meal. To store it right, don't just leave it in the paper bag. Transfer it into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. Then drop those into a food-grade bucket with a tight lid. If you really want to be thorough, freeze the flour for a couple of days first to kill any insect eggs, then store it. Keep it cool, dark, dry, and sealed, and that plain white powder turns into long-term security you can bake. Number 12 is dried corn and cornmeal. Dried corn has one big advantage. Once it's fully dried, there's almost no moisture left for mold or bacteria. That's why properly stored whole corn and cornmeal can sit on a shelf for years and still be safe to eat. In a crisis, that kind of steady, reliable carbohydrate is gold. You also get a lot of flexibility from one simple ingredient. Whole dried kernels can be ground into cornmeal for cornbread, pancakes, porridge, or polenta. Cornmeal thickens soups and stews, stretches other ingredients, and turns a thin broth into something filling. With the right type, you can even pop kernels for a high-calorie snack that lifts morale on a hard day. Corn is naturally gluten-free, so it's a safe base for anyone who can't handle wheat. It provides steady energy, some fiber, and B vitamins, and works well with beans, canned meat, or vegetables. A pot of cornmeal mush with salt, oil, or powdered milk can feel like a full meal when choices are limited. For long-term storage, treat corn like other grains. Keep whole kernels and cornmeal in airtight containers or Mylar bags. Protect them from moisture, heat, insects, and strong odors. Do that, and humble dried corn becomes a long-lasting workhorse in your stockpile. Number 11 is rolled oats. Oats have two big advantages. First, they're dried, steamed, and flattened, which drives the moisture down to a level where mold and bacteria just can't get a foothold. Second, they're relatively low in natural oils compared to many whole grains, so they don't turn rancid quickly. That's why properly stored rolled oats or steel-cut oats can stay usable for many years, even decades, if you keep them cool, dry, and sealed. From a survival point of view, oats punch way above their weight. A small scoop gives you slow, steady energy, plenty of fiber, and important vitamins and minerals. When life is upside down, a warm bowl of oats with a little sugar, honey, or powdered milk can feel like a real breakfast instead of emergency food. You can turn them into porridge, baked bars, bread stretchers, meat extenders, or even crumble toppings when you're trying to make canned fruit feel special. To make oats truly long-term, transfer them out of flimsy paper packaging into airtight containers, buckets, or Mylar bags. Keep them away from damp air and strong smells, and don't store them right on a concrete floor. Treated right, that boring-looking tub of oats quietly becomes one of the most reliable, comforting foods in your entire stockpile. Number 10 is dried pasta and ramen. Dried pasta is your easy win comfort food when everything else feels hard. It lasts so long because almost all the moisture has been removed. No moisture means bacteria and mold have nowhere to live. So spaghetti, penne, fusilli, and even ramen bricks can sit on a shelf for years if you keep them dry and sealed. Storage is simple but crucial. Leave pasta in the thin supermarket bag too long, and humidity, pantry bugs, or strong odors can creep in. It won't suddenly become dangerous, but it can turn stale, brittle, or start tasting like the garlic and spices next to it. The smarter move is to transfer pasta and ramen into airtight containers or thick freezer bags, then stash them in a cool, dark cupboard away from moisture and heat. Where pasta and ramen really earn their place is morale. On a long, stressful day, boiling water and getting a hot bowl of noodles in minutes is a big psychological win. Plain pasta becomes a full meal with a little oil, salt, canned meat, or dried herbs. Ramen upgrades easily with canned veggies, an egg, or a scoop of beans. Cheap, filling, kid-friendly, and flexible, they absolutely deserve a permanent spot in any never-expire stockpile. At number 9, we have non-fat powdered milk. Think of this as backup dairy in a bag. When fresh milk disappears from the shelves, powdered milk quietly steps in. It brings protein, calcium, and vitamin D to your stockpile, which is huge for kids, older adults, and anyone who can't live on carbs alone. A scoop in warm water turns into milk for cereal, tea, coffee, baking, or a simple bedtime drink when everything else feels uncertain. Non-fat powdered milk is built for long storage because of what's missing. The fat has been removed, and fat is what goes rancid. With the moisture driven off and the oils taken out, bacteria have nothing to feed on, and oxidation slows way down. Kept sealed in a cool, dry place, it can stay safe and usable for years. The taste may fade a bit, but the nutrition is still there when you need it. The catch is what happens after opening. Once air and humidity get in, the powder can clump and eventually mold, and that can't be saved by boiling. The fix is simple. Split big bags into smaller airtight containers. Use oxygen absorbers if you want extra insurance, and store them away from strong odors. Handle it that way, and powdered milk stops being emergency only and becomes real, reliable nutrition when fresh dairy is long gone. Next, we have dried lentils. These are the quiet overachievers of the pantry. Lentils cook faster than almost any other dried bean, don't need overnight soaking, and still deliver serious nutrition. In a situation where fuel, time, and energy are limited, that matters. A pot of lentils can go from dry to ready to eat in under an hour, giving you protein, fiber, iron, and folate in one simple bowl. They work in soups, stews, curries, salads, or even thick lentil chili when meat is hard to find. What earns lentils a place on a never-expire list is how stable they are when stored correctly. Very low moisture and no oily outer layer mean they don't go rancid like some grains and seeds. Kept in airtight containers, away from heat and humidity, dried lentils can sit on a shelf for years while still holding their nutritional value. They may take a little longer to soften as they age, but they're still safe and still filling. For anyone thinking long-term, lentils aren't just another bag of dried food. They're a compact, reliable protein source that can keep you going when fresh meat and dairy are no longer guaranteed. At number 7, we've got dried beans. Kidney, black, pinto, navy, chickpeas, all of them. These are true survival workhorses. For generations, people have relied on beans to get through war, famine, drought, and hard winters, and there's a reason they keep showing up in every prepper pantry. They're cheap, dense with calories, and packed with protein, fiber, iron, and complex carbs that actually keep you full. What makes dried beans so powerful for long-term storage is how little they give bacteria to work with. Very low moisture, very little natural oil. That combination means no easy environment for mold, rot, or rancidity. Stored in airtight containers, kept dry, off the floor and away from humidity, dried beans can last for decades. The only real change over time is texture. Older beans can take longer to soften, but they're still safe and still nutritious. In a crisis, a single pot of beans cooked with water and salt can feed a family and deliver serious nutrition. Pair them with rice, pasta, or canned vegetables, and you've got a complete protein source without needing meat. Dried beans aren't just another bag on the shelf. They're a long-lasting, renewable backbone of any serious food stockpile. Number 6 is canned foods, meat, fish, and vegetables. If you want one category that quietly does almost everything, it's this one. Canned food is basically time-locked inside metal. The factory seals the can airtight, then heats it hot enough to kill bacteria. Once it cools, nothing new can get in. That's why properly stored canned meat, fish, and veg can stay safe far beyond the printed date. In some shipwreck cases, even after many decades. The flavor and texture may fade, but the process itself is solid. The key is the condition of the can, not the calendar. The date is about best quality, not sudden danger. You're looking for warning signs: bulging, leaking, deep dents on seams, or heavy rust. If you see those, skip it. If the can is sound, the food is usually still safe. In an emergency, canned tuna, salmon, chicken, corned beef, beans, tomatoes, and corn give you protein, carbs, salt, and liquid in one ready-to-eat package. Store them in a cool, dry place. Rotate older cans forward, and your shelves become a backup pantry that keeps working when the power and grocery store don't. Number 5 is freeze-dried meat. Fresh meat is the first thing to vanish in a crisis. It spoils fast, needs constant refrigeration, and is heavy to store. Freeze-dried beef, chicken, or turkey flips that completely. Almost all the water is removed in a controlled process, but the protein and nutrients stay. That's why properly packaged freeze-dried meat can sit on a shelf for 25 to 30 years and still be safe and useful. Add hot water, and it springs back to life. It's not a restaurant steak, but it's real meat. You can throw it into rice, pasta, soups, stews, or tacos, and suddenly your emergency food feels like a normal family dinner. A single serving can deliver 20 to 30 grams of high-quality protein plus fats. Your body needs to stay strong, think clearly, and recover from stress. To protect that kind of insurance, storage is everything. Keep it in sealed cans or mylar pouches with oxygen absorbers in a cool, dark, dry place. Once you open a container, use it quickly or reseal it as airtight as possible. Treated right, freeze-dried meat is a quiet backup butcher shop waiting on your shelf. Number 4 is coconut oil. If most cooking oils are short-term guests in your pantry, coconut oil is the one that moves in and refuses to leave. It's naturally high in saturated fat, which sounds bad in diet talk, but is a superpower for storage. Those stable fats make coconut oil far more resistant to rancidity than vegetable, canola, or seed oils. Kept cool, dark, and sealed, good quality coconut oil can stay usable for years, even close to a decade in ideal conditions. You also get much more than something to fry with. Coconut oil works for high-heat cooking, baking, and fast calories when energy is low. In a real grid-down situation, one jar can double as skin moisturizer, lip balm, hair treatment, and even improvised lamp fuel with a simple wick. One product quietly covers cooking, hygiene, and small comforts. To keep it in top shape, store coconut oil in glass or food-grade plastic, away from stoves, windows, and direct sun. Don't dip in with wet or dirty utensils. If the smell ever turns sharp, sour, or soapy, rotate it out. Treated right, coconut oil becomes your long-lasting, multi-purpose survival fat. At number 3, we have salt. But not just any salt. For long-term storage, you want pure, non-iodized salt, sea salt, kosher salt, or rock salt with no additives. Salt is basically an edible rock. No protein, no fat, no sugar, no moisture. There's nothing in it for bacteria, mold, or insects to live on. That's why salt pulled from the ground after millions of years is still perfectly fine. It doesn't expire, it just waits. The trouble starts when we tinker with it. Iodine, anti-caking agents, and flavor mixes can break down, change color, or affect taste over time. The salt is still there, but the extras don't age well. Oxygen absorbers are another mistake. Salt doesn't need them. If a little moisture gets trapped, you just end up with a rock-hard brick. Salt only needs three things: a dry place, a tight lid, and protection from humidity and strong odors. In an emergency, it becomes much more than a seasoning. You can cure meat, ferment vegetables, mix it with sugar for simple electrolyte drinks, and even help clean minor wounds. A few cheap bags of plain salt can quietly protect a huge amount of food. At number 2, we've got white rice. If you had to pick one staple that can keep people fed for years, this is it. The secret isn't fancy nutrients. It's what's missing: oil. Brown rice keeps its oily bran layer and turns rancid in months. White rice has that layer milled off, so there's almost no fat left to oxidize. No oil means no quick spoilage and no easy home for mold or bacteria. Stored properly, white rice can last for decades and still cook up like normal. The enemies aren't the grains. It's moisture, oxygen, insects, and strong smells. So don't leave it sitting in thin store bags. Move it into food-grade containers. Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside a sturdy bucket are ideal. Even a sealed, dry container in a cool, dark place away from spices and chemicals massively extends its life. White rice also gives you options. With extra water, it becomes soft porridge for kids, the sick, or anyone exhausted. With less water, it's a solid base for canned meat, beans, or vegetables. Paired with dried beans or lentils, it forms a complete protein. Cheap, steady, and predictable. It's food that's ready for any storm. At number 1, the absolute non-negotiable is stored water. Food gives you comfort and energy. Water gives you time to stay alive. You can go weeks without eating. Go about 3 days without water and your body starts to shut down, no matter how full your pantry is. That's why every serious prep plan starts with the same rule. Secure water first, argue about everything else later. Pure water itself doesn't really expire. It has no sugar, no protein, and nothing for bacteria to eat. What fails over time is the container. Cheap plastic bottles left in a hot garage, car trunk, or sunny spot slowly break down. Microplastics, chemicals, and weird tastes creep in, even if the water still looks clear. Good storage is all about location and materials. Keep water cool, dark, sealed, and away from fuel, paint, or strong chemicals. Use food-grade jugs, water bricks, or sturdy bottles indoors. Add some glass or stainless steel containers if you want true long-term security. And always have a backup: a gravity filter, purification tablets, or the option to boil if you're unsure. If the tap stopped tonight, how many days would your current water really last your family? That's our list of 19 foods to stockpile. They don't just fill shelves, they buy you time, options, and a lot of peace of mind when things get shaky. Now don't stop here. Go watch Top 20 Fake Foods You're Eating, How to Spot and Avoid Them. Next, so you don't waste money filling your pantry with fake, overprocessed junk that pretends to be real food.